I guess so. I guess I got to do that dance, the hotline bling. It's actually kind of funny because we built the sales development team a couple years ago, and one of our first things was to answer the phone, and we actually had a hat that says the hotline bling, so I'll show you pictures later. All right, so my name's Andrew Berger, as David mentioned, so just want to thank you all for being here. Thanks for the invitation from David to come talk to you all today. Square is hopefully ubiquitous in everyone's lives here. You can see it at farmers markets or even restaurants and retail establishments. We're international now. We are working with some very large enterprise clients now, and that's the direction that we're going. And so I'll talk a little bit about my history, talk about leadership, some principles that I apply to our team, and how we've gone from my org specifically 2 years ago with 2 interns and 2 contractors to now 50 people and just in the United States alone. So who am I? I lead our sales and business development team. I like to say I'm a utility player, so I do all inbound sales development, outbound sales from a BDR to enterprise BD based in New York. Also, the bottom of our funnel, our implementation team, our professional services. It's kind of a broad scope, so I do everything top and bottom of the funnel, as well as marketing and sales acquisition channels. So for example, a day in my life was last week. I was at the phone vendor piloting a new phone system. I was in New York launching a door-to-door sales campaign. Afterwards, I was talking with our Canada team about launching this in Toronto. So I'm just kind of all over the place and also have to deliver pipeline and profitability and all that fun metric stuff. Before Square, I was working in product management, so I'm very system focused and operationally inclined. That's kind of my background. And I work really well with our other sales leaders who are much more sales first, operationally second. I'm more operationally first, sales second. Before that, I played professional sports for a number of years, was slumming around the minor leagues and made it up to a cup of coffee in AAA, and that was fun. But realized that I needed to have a career and whatnot, so I went to school out in Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, and then from the Bay Area ended up back here. So, who are sales development leaders today? So I have like 6 managers on my team, and they all were top performing reps, right? And some of them were enterprise AEs, some of them came from marketing. So from what I've seen, and I'm sure everyone on this in here, the people on your team or you were either a top performer, enterprise rep, or some sort of high SMB type of rep, or marketing. And so that's kind of the swath of people that we're working with today. And so some of the times what I've seen when someone is a top performing rep and they get promoted to a manager role, you probably start as a sales development manager. And there's a lot of ins and outs on that, and I'm going to talk about that going forward. But you always have to realize, who are you managing, right? Where these people come from? And I'll tell you about my story about how I've set goals for my team and what I've learned. I mean, this talk for the next 15 minutes or so is going to be a lot of trial and fire, and a lot of fire and learning. For me, I've always learned the most when I've failed. And I think if you take that approach, at Square, we believe heavily in the growth mindset. You're either going to grow or you're not. You're either going to take what you've learned and take it to the next step, or you're stagnant. And we have a high hiring bar, and we look for, when we hire people, do you do things that are extracurricular? Do you want to be a better human besides just like sales and marketing and whatnot? But do you want to learn? I've had people on my team who play music, who take courses at General Assembly in language courses, teach themselves how to code, they learn marketing analytics. Like, that's the people that we want, and that's the people that I've seen who've succeeded the most. So I walk all my new hires across the entire business organization through this little exercise right here. So what does this number mean? I'll take anyone. 24 hours in a day, exactly. All right, so no one's working 24 hours a day. That's a pretty easy one. What about this one? 8 hours in a workday, exactly. Well, we all say it, but I get up at 4:30, go to bed whenever, and so it's like I'm working many more hours of that. But think about it if you're the perspective of like a 24, 25 to 30-year-old rep, like 8 hours in a workday, that's a lot, okay? Now, let's say that you're gonna get an hour for lunch, you're getting coffee in the morning, you're getting coffee afternoon, you're gonna go to the bathroom 6 times, you're gonna go talk with your colleague downstairs and upstairs, right? It's really like 6 hours a day. Or 4, right? So how many times are you, you see metrics out there, I want talk time for 2 hours, I want talk time for 4 hours, I want to make $100 a day or whatnot. So realistically, like I've done this, like when I started the team, I had like 4 people, I'd literally clock them and watch. Now, just not to like berate them or anything like that, I just want to know, I'm very operationally focused. I want to know how come we're not as efficient as we are. And so there's a study by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that says the average worker, now this is industry agnostic, says you're productive for 3.3 hours per day. So for us, I take this 3.3 hours and I say, how can you be the most efficient in your time? Because if you're coming in the office at 7 in the morning to dial on the East Coast or dial on the Central Time, and you're staying till 6 or 7 o'clock at night, you're not going to be a happy camper. You're not going to be a happy employee. You're not going to be working at Square anymore. You're going to want to go do more things. It's going to be a drag on your interpersonal relationships, right? You're not going to be able to have time to do your time. And so I go through a little more detail of how we're efficient and how we scale our team to be more efficient and take advantage. And we do this next training, which is called Optimizing the 4, but I'm going to save you all from that. But it's a reality. The people we deal with, I walk down the sales aisle today, or sales floor, right? I have someone on Snapchat here, someone on Instagram there, someone on LinkedIn there, right? That's what people do. Take a guess, what are the top 3 distracting pieces? And I'll take one guess. Top 3 distractors taking away from the 8 hours to that 3.3. Facebook, yes. So reading non-business related news websites, so whether it could be Facebook, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, maybe that's the more intellect crew, but maybe Snapchat and Twitter. Talking with your colleagues or on non-work related stuff takes about 45 minutes stuff as activities. And number 3 is searching for a new job. Well, why are they searching for a new job? That's 40 minutes a day. Whether you're answering LinkedIn emails, like I get LinkedIn requests all the time, and I actually answer, and I'm wondering how many times a day that actually stacks up. So for me, my leadership methodology and philosophy is how do I make these reps most effective in their day-to-day, the most plugged in, to get in and get the hell out. Because you don't need to linger, right? We have a pod-based system. If Doug is over here and he's getting annoyed about the conversation, about he's not having a great day, and then this person over here sees his sentiment go down, and this person starts not calling anybody, it's just a snowball effect. The energy for us, we need energy to be high. And so energy does not remain at a constant rate when you're going through your day-to-day and when you're at the office for 10 or 12 hours a day. So how can you get in, get out, and be productive? So I can go on and on about efficiency and being with your day-to-day, but a lot of things I've learned in my position when I became a manager a number of years ago was how do you set goals. So I came from a sports background. I didn't care about getting up in the morning for 6 a.m. practice, didn't care about the sacrifices not going for parties on Friday night at school. I cared about the vision, which was I want to be on TV and play baseball and get paid a shit ton of money. That was my goal. For me, then what I did is for all those experiences, I took them when I actually became an AE. It's I don't care about how many calls I have, don't care about how many emails, how many activities, how many demos. I want my name at the top of that leaderboard at the quarter. That's it. We're a quarterly based system. I just want my name there. It just so happens when you look at the numbers at the end of the quarter, end of the week, end of the month, I was doing all the right inputs. I was always at the top of emails, calls, activities, demos, on-sites, off-sites, whatever. And so when I became a manager, I was great, I don't really care what you do day to day. Just get there. How do you get there? And what I realized after 2 quarters, that the way I thought about it was not the way that everyone else thought about it, right? So I put a number at the board, or a quarter, whether it's pipeline or wins, we don't have to go in those type of details. But I said, okay, blank DR, right? Your name needs to be at the top of the board, and this is what we expect from a quarterly basis. And then we realized they're not doing the inputs on the weekly, the daily, the monthly. And so when you set goals, and this is really for early managers in their career, that you really need to break it down, not on an annual, quarterly, monthly, daily, weekly number. It has to be what do you need to get done in the morning? What do you need to get done in the afternoon? And get in and get out and be as efficient as possible. So to take away anything of talking for me today or Sean or anyone before me and after me, it's be realistic, and your people crave goal setting, intraday goal setting. They want to know what they got to do from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. They want to know what they got to do from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I can't stress this enough because I failed on this aspect, and that cost us because there's some rep issues and leadership issues. I'm just go be that person, just go do that. But not everyone is this cookie cutter of a sales type of rep. We all are humans and personalities and different backgrounds and ethnicities and religions and where we came from. But if you put it on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly goal, all of a sudden you realize that you're going to start to attain what you want to attain. For me, being a sales leader, the most effective thing that I've done is, and I probably to the detriment, is I say yes way too much. I say yes to that meeting, I say yes to that project. I'm still learning. Everyone always learns. I'm still learning to say no to a lot of things. But I like to get in the mix with a lot of things, and then all of a sudden I start to build credibility. And when I build credibility, the places that people look at to get shit done, which is the training that I lead for our new hires, is they come to me. Or ask, hey, we have $30,000, how can we get $200,000 out of that? I have no idea. There's white space, let's go figure it out over there. For example, in Q2, my boss came to me and said, we have some money for an incremental ask for our quarter, we're under budget, what can we do? So my buddy who runs sales out of our New York office was like, well, what if we just like walk door to door? In New York, for our product and what we sell, it's a very high market, and you have to bring in a lot of dollars to afford rent there, and we get comped on processing volume, right? Payments, how much payments are being run on Square systems. So I was like, oh, that's a lot of payment volume. Do the analysis, blah, 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 blah. And what my buddy in New York didn't realize was like, okay, well, if we take reps in our office, then that's really expensive time, right? You're talking like 60 to 120K depending on what role that they're in. And that opportunity cost of taking them like walking around door to door is like missing out on their core function. So how can we do this in a scalable, effective manner? And so what I did is like, okay, well, here's a sum of money, pretty low. How can we effectively hire an agency, get marketing contact, marketing collateral, work with product managers, work with city leads, and all this sort of stuff. And we created a program. And in like, I want to say 5 days of the program, we created like $95 million in opportunity pipeline just from in a scalable, effective manner. And I'm talking, we use like super interesting tools like from our sales engineering tool, we ingested the Google Places API. We gave these people mini iPads to walking around door to door, and they press a button on the Google Places API, and it's synced to Salesforce. So doing all this sort of stuff. And the only reason why we were able to create that is that I had relationships with people across our organization. I started Square, I was employee number 600. We have 3,000 globally now. But I've proven myself when I've been able to now tap into resources that maybe don't align with that person's OKR, maybe don't align with the marketing team. It wasn't on the we have this creative traffic thing where all the countries and all the teams that use our marketing creative assets, they meet weekly to see like what kind of things are coming in and how they're playing their quarterly. And I'm like, hey, I got this like thing from New York. Can we like fit this in? And like then I go explain and talk, and they trust me because I've proven to be successful. And that starts from building relationships, and that starts from knowing who your people are across the aisle. Sales and marketing, right? We kind of go like this all the time, I'm sure. Take them to coffee, get to know people. It's like basic human skills 101. But when you have that credibility, when you have that personal relationship, people will then assist you and want to help you. All right, so talk a little bit about compensation. So I hate compensation because it's hard and everyone cares about it. Everyone loves it because we all get paid, and that's a good thing, but I hate asking for more money and all that fun stuff. Now, from my experience, when you're just starting a team, and I have some friends that are Series A, Series B, they're doing some really cool startup things left and right, and they're asking me for sales advice and how to get started. I think the absolute worst thing if you're just starting, now this is like, if you're just starting blank team, AE team, sales dev team, whatever team, to tie variable compensation to their performance, like just when you start out. We had no historical data. We started our company in 2009. We started our sales team in really early 2014. We started our sales dev team in 2015. We used to send all the leads to every AE, like me. It was great. I got like 20 leads a week, but they were super unqualified, and they're taking one payment a year. But what I want to do is like put variable compensation in front of these SDRs and these BDRs, because that's the direction that we had to go. Every salesperson should be on variable comp. But my operational brain was like, this doesn't make any sense if we have no idea what we can perform in this segment. If we're going to start outbound calling, if we're going to inbound lead qualification, so many different mechanisms underneath that. And what we did was that we modeled it all out with our sales comp analysts and said, if we're going to pay you X and you're going to 80-20 or 70-30, depending on the role in the segment, your variable is going to be Amazon gift cards. That's what we started for 2 quarters, because we wanted to see some historical data to determine like, is this directionally appropriate? Right? We call it flip from stage 1 to stage 2 in the opportunity pipeline. If you get X amount of pipeline flip from stage 1 to stage 2, you get $300, top person gets $500 in Amazon gift cards. There's a monetary incentive, and we're coaching them. But we did not go directly into variable compensation. I have friends that are running companies on the other side who are dipping right into variable compensation. You hire someone, you're going to pay them $80,000 to $100,000 as a sales rep after 2 years of experience somewhere else. You have the opportunity of a lifetime to build a company from scratch and all this. And all of a sudden, after 1 quarter, like, oh my God, we need to put variable compensation. We have to have our incentives aligned. And we're going to take that 100K and chop it right in half. And variable is your 50% variable and 50% if you hit your targets. And that is a shitty experience as a rep that I've seen. I would also say that one thing I just fundamentally do not believe in is tying your compensation to inputs. Compensation should always be outputs. You spiff your inputs to get your desired outputs. Your variable comp is your desired outputs. Your spiffs is with your inputs. If Doug's not making enough phone calls, sorry to pick on you, you're just like easy right there with the hat. If Doug's making 5 calls a week and I want everyone to be making like 200 a week, right? I'll say for this quarter, here's X amount of dollars, or here's the next Amazon gift card or happy hour sponsored by Doug, but I'll pay for it for $500 if he gets his number on calls. And then all of a sudden we can see the numbers and the data flow that, calls leads to appointments, that leads to demos, leads to pipeline. So the 2 takeaways from this slide, I would say, is your variable comes from your desired outputs, and I would say never variable your inputs, but spiff your inputs. And if you're going to start to build a team, have at least 2 quarters of historical data just to have a concept of where to start with variable comp. We've shifted at Square for probably the past 3 years. That's just a part of sales and a part of a business that's growing. We went from a revenue-based model to a margin-based model. My BDR team right now is just on a stage 2, so like a appointment set and pipeline source, but probably next year we're going to be, one of the teams is probably going to be based on deals closing. So when you adjust and roll out comp plans, I have all my managers, we're on a big spiel about the why. Give the why behind. The why we're doing this, ample time to understand. We're Simon Sinek, if anyone's read his book, Leaders Eat Last, to start with why. Simon Sinek's YouTube video, his TED Talk about Apple versus TiVo, start with why. All right, so contact strategies, like about 7 minutes, and I'll leave a few minutes for some questions. So Square, you all think probably, this little white little weird thing, and there's it can be at farmers markets and food trucks, but turns out we're actually selling to pretty much every single local business, whether it's a single location place or Blue Bottle, who was just funded by Nestle for $500 million, and every type of person in between. E-commerce, APIs, platform, blah, 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 blah. For me, when I first started, it was okay, I'm looking at our TAM, and legitimately it was 42 million. We put in our investor relations report, I think last year I'd say, that our total addressable marketplace is 42 million businesses in the United States. It's okay, well, how the hell am I going to go focus and try to execute against 42 million when I have 10 people on my team? So that's something that didn't add up there. When we first started, I was let's cast the biggest net as possible, the wide net, right? And there's a lot of stuff with Engagio and their blog posts about how you're fishing with spheres or nets, but it was true. We started and more tangibly understand that we had a very massive contact or lead per rep ratio, in the tunes of thousands, right? You're talking someone owns 2,000 leads in their name, and how are you going to execute against that? Now, in hindsight, I can say, that was pretty stupid of me. But when I'm in the throes of it, it's we have 42 million businesses to go target. Everyone gets 1,000. Everyone gets 2,000. Every month we're getting re-upped. And it turns out that we weren't contacting them enough. We had an average of 2.2 touches per contact. And we weren't growing as fast as I wanted to grow. And so counterintuitively, it makes sense now, obviously, and I'm sure it makes sense to all of you, but I was let's decrease the amount of contacts or leads per rep. And all of a sudden, we started to decrease the inputs, and all the outputs started to go skyrocketing. So my takeaway here is just to be wary of how many contacts, accounts, leads, whatever your process is, on a per rep basis. And it feels weird to say, I'm not going to give you 500 leads this quarter, I'm only going to give you 100, but it's kind of crazy that we actually got much better returns and much better output. This type of strategy, right, our business is very funnel-centric, thousands of inbound leads, thousands of outbound leads. However, we are starting to broach into the enterprise, the account-based space. And that's I'm even seeing with we have one enterprise BD, he's operating out of New York. And even we're starting this account-based strategy. He has 100 accounts, 25 different industries, 300 contacts or in total, so about 2 to 3 per account. And even with 100 being super personalized, touching, walking to these businesses, calling, LinkedIn, even 100 is too much for him. Now, those LTVs are literally 40x than our normal business. So I can probably even pare down that 100 per quarter to something more manageable, 25 to 30. So takeaway here is understand your business, understand your metrics, and realize that sometimes scaling things back, or maybe taking a step backwards to go forwards, 3 steps, could potentially be the right approach. So that's about it. I got about 3 minutes left for questions. Sorry, I kind of rushed through a bunch of different things, but it's basically a lot of things I've learned trial by fire and a lot of fire the past 2 years, but we've come out of it all right. Happy to take any questions if you guys have any. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the last comment you made about giving too many leads to your reps and your contact rate wasn't so high. When you lowered the count per rep, what else did you do to get their kind of contact rate?
Sure. So wherever Sean is, we use SalesLoft, and it helps us communicate to the masses.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. The question was, when we decrease the accounts or contacts or leads per rep, what else did we do? So we work with a bunch of different data providers, and one of our data providers, this is kind of crazy, but if you put Square plus blank name in an email, we default get 30% opens and 7% response rates. If we put Square plus business name in the email, and our data provider goes to their website, let's say we're going on a restaurant's campaign, and puts their top rated item on Yelp that we have people go source and put in our Salesforce and syncs, so they can automate that to be efficient, we got 30% opens and 14.5% response rate. So when I just say, Doug, you have great fish tacos, they write back, they never say like F off or anything like that. They're like, oh, cool, I'm glad you like that. So we thought about being more efficient with our data collection, so I didn't have them spending time scouring Yelp. Like, why should they do that? It's not efficient, that's not optimized. And we installed software that helped us not manually do a bunch of things. And for us, there's a bunch of different partners and vendors out there, but for us, we use SalesLoft for that aspect. Cool, thanks for the question.
I got one.
Yes.
I was going to ask, working at Square, what would you feel is your biggest failures, and how do you overcome it?
All right, what was my biggest failure at Square? That's a hard question. I would say the comp plan. I burned some bridges there a number of years ago. I'll be honest, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'll be the first to admit it, back then. But I've learned from it. So let's see, I hired my first external hires to our BDR position, or outbound sales prospecting position. And we said, this is your salary. And I was explicit, I said, we are putting variable compensation together. And there will be a portion of that's variable. And maybe we didn't set the right expectations that 2 quarters down the line, this, call it 100, that's just 100 as a number, or 10 was a number, it's dropping to 8, and that 20 is now the variable. In hindsight, and moving forward, I would never ever do that again. I would start low, and then put variable back on top. And that caused, some trust issues, transparency issues, a bunch of different things. But if you don't learn, then you're not living. Yes? What's up, Coster? He's the one who got away. We tried to hire this kid.
You've credited a lot of your development and success to being intentional about creating relationships across the company.
Yeah.
But now that you're managing SDRs, it's very easy to become siloed in your team.
Mm-hmm.
The daily expectations and work you have to put in. What are the systems that you put in place to help make the SDR team more transparent to the organization?
Sure.
Create those relationships with, technical and
Mm-hmm.
other.
Sure. So question was that a lot of the functions that the people do that I manage are very siloed. We have 2,500 to 3,000 global employees. How do they fit within and go back to the slide of the tree and networking and whatnot? It is a philosophy of Square. I'm just the beneficiary of it, or I'm the benefactor of it rather. That we have a big open door policy. We have email aliases that every email that has non-PII information and non-material, because now we're public, non-material public information gets sent to an email alias that's called Noteset. So I could be on vacation and reading hardware notes out of our team in Toronto, EMV certification, hardware, firmware, blah, 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 if I really cared to learn about that. So that process and that doctrine of Square as a company to be transparent filters down to every role, org, VP, director, manager, and on down. We don't have any offices. Any offices. Everything is open floor plan. Jack Dorsey is the CEO of 2 companies. He doesn't have a desk. He just sits wherever he wants to sit. He'll sit next, won't probably ever sit next to me, but anyways, he'll sit next to other people in any department, right? Square Cash to Capital to our engineers, platform engineering and whatnot. And it's just, honestly, it's his mindset and his philosophy to have an open door policy that makes it okay that about once a week, someone that I have no idea who they are says, hey, can I get a cup of coffee in 15 minutes? I want to talk about career opportunities, blah, 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 blah. And that's just part of our culture. That's something you can't put a finger on, you can't teach, but being at our company, that's what we believe in. And so getting back to your original question about them being siloed, our marketing team wants to know the efficacy of their Marketo and MQLs, right? And so they'll come and they'll shadow. Or someone on support might have a question about something, some sales campaign, and it's just part of our DNA for how the person to come sit with us. We have actually a thing called Shadow. We use LDAP and like GoLink, so go/shadow. It means you can sign up for anything. There's about a 3-month wait list to go shadow the hardware lab. But I did that like 2 years ago. It was amazing. And so these type of like company doctrines enable that to be not a friction point, to be siloed, because everyone's curious about what everyone's working on. Yeah.
On the hiring question.
Yes.
Growth mindset you're looking for. I'm curious if like team sports backgrounds, like what you do with that, if that's in the hiring process.
Yeah.
Final question is, what round were you drafted in?
All right. So first question was, what do we do and how do we look for growth mindset and team sports? Absolutely. Now, I will say one training that our HR team did for us, for hiring managers, something that stood out to me massively was unconscious bias, right? Talk about unconscious bias, like who's in my network? Guys I played baseball with, people that went to decent schools, people that work here, right? So I am very actually now aware and cognizant that when I go tap my network for someone or some people on my team or managers, that I can differentiate and get diversity. Now, yes, I had female golfers on our team, top performers. Other college baseball players, top performers. People that played lacrosse and football, yes, absolutely. Because there's just something innate, and I've lived through it, that when you struggle together, you struggle as a team, you build camaraderie, and you're just a better teammate. I mean, there's a clear distinction. I mean, if anyone shadows our team, or honestly our sales org for probably like 6 months, you could pick out without knowing anyone who was on a team before, whether it was like band practice or cheerleading or whatever, and who was not. I'm not going to say I'm completely biased if they play sports. We'll have a conversation, or I care about the passion they've had. And what round I signed as a free agent out of college when I was a senior.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.